video is on how to solve problems using proportions that involve percent. So if we take a look at number 6 from your homework, it asks, what percent of 25 is 35? Now keep in mind there's more than one correct way to solve these problems, but our objective is to solve it using a proportion. So I'm going to start with a proportion. And remember, a proportion states that one fraction is equivalent to another fraction. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask myself, did they give me the percent? So if I scan this problem, they did not give me a percent. They asked me to find it. It says what percent? And yesterday we learned that percents are out of 100. So in my proportion, I'm going to have x over 100 because we need to figure out what percent, and percents are out of 100 if you write it as a fraction. Okay, then just like a percent is out of 100, this is out of 25. We want to know what is 35. So we're trying to figure out what percent of a whole 25 is 35. So again, we want to know what percent is 35 of a whole 25. So before I continue on this problem, the first thing that I notice is that the numerator is larger than the denominator. So that means that our percent should also be larger than the denominator, 100. Just like if you got a 35 out of 25 on a test, your percent is over 100. So that is the new part, is the setup. Solving it is what we've done earlier this week. So if I was solving this problem, you can simplify this if you'd like, but what I noticed, if I point to the x and go across, 25 times 4 is 100, so then 35 times 4 would tell us that x is 140%. Or remember again that you can simplify this by 5 to 7 over 5. And you could also use cross products. So 5 times x is 5x. 7 times 100 is 700. Divide by 5, and that is 140%. Okay, let's take a look at number 4 from your homework. So let's set up our proportion. The first step is to ask ourselves, did they give us the percent in this problem? So we want to know, it says 18 is 45% of what number? So they gave us a percent. And percents can be written in fraction form as over 100. So I like to put the percents always on the right side. So I'm going to rewrite 45% as 45 over 100. Because 45 is out of 100. So this problem's asking us 18 is 45% of what? So it's asking us, what is this out of? What is it out of? So we're going to have an x here. So to solve this, I'm going to simplify the 45 and the 100. And that becomes 9 over 20. Then I'm going to point to the x, go across, and I'm going to ask myself, how do I get from 9 to 18? Multiply by 2. So then 20 times 2 would get us that x is 40. So notice that the numerator is smaller than the denominator, and notice here that 18 is smaller than our answer. So if we replace x with 40, notice that half of 40 is 20. So 18 is slightly less than half of this, and that's why it was 45%, because 45% is almost a little bit under half. Okay, so let's do one more. Example 2, I'm not going to solve the whole thing, but I want to go over the setup of this problem. So it says, what percent of 24 is 4? So the first thing you're going to ask yourself is, were you given the percent? No, we were not given the percent. That is what we have to find. It says, what percent? And percents are out of 100. So a percent is out of 100. Well, this fraction's out of 24. We want to know what is 4 is 4 is 4 out of 24. So then I would simplify this by 4 to 1 over 6. And then I would point to the x, go across, and 6 times what is 100? I don't know. So then to solve this, you're going to use cross products. And then divide by 6. And remember, you can reduce this before you divide. So you can reduce this and make it 50 over 3. That way when you're dividing, the numbers are smaller. So we're going to get 16.6 repeating. And it says in the directions, round to the nearest whole number. So that 6 will make the 6 a 7. So it's about 17%. Okay, then the next part we're going to talk about what if we have problems that aren't sentences, but it's a application problem, a word problem. So if we take a look at, let's go with number 12 first from your homework. So if you take a look at number 12, it says, the Phoenix Suns team scored 75 points. So that's what the whole team scored. 48%, that's almost half, of the points were scored by Steve Nash. So this is when Steve Nash was on the Suns. How many points did Steve Nash make? So we are solving these again with proportions, because that's what our objective is. And the first thing you're going to ask yourself is, was the percent given? 48. And percents are out of 100. So then what you want to do is, because this problem has some real life information going on here, we want to make sure that we understand what the 48 represents. So the 48 represents 48% of the points were scored by Steve Nash. So this represents the percent of points scored by Nash. And the denominator represents the whole team. So Steve Nash did not score all the whole team's points. He only scored 48%. So then over here, so that it is proportional, the number that goes here should be how many points Steve scored. But they didn't tell us that. We have to find it. How many points did Steve make? So we know it's 48%, but we want to know how many points he made. That's the percent he made. And then what goes here is the whole team. The whole team scored 75. So the denominator is what the total is. So the total points were 75, and parts So this is a part and a whole relationship. Part of the points were scored by C. 48 was the part. So then to solve this, we can simplify the fraction. We could divide this by 4. And then you could either do cross products, or what I like to do first is point to the x, go diagonal, and how do I get from 25 to 75? So I need 3/4 to get to 75, right? So then 12 times 3 will get us 36 points. Then you want to make sure your answer makes sense. So if x was 36, half of 75, this is almost half of the team score. That's why it was 48%. Okay, let's take a look at number 8. Find what percent of the calories is fat. Round to the nearest whole percent. So we're probably going to get a decimal here. First thing you ask yourself is, did they give you the percent? No, it asks you to find the percent. So our x is going to be over 100 because we need to find the percent, and percents are out of 100. So then the percent we're trying to find is, find what percent of the calories is fat. So this represents the percent that is fat. So the number that has to go over here that's equivalent to it is, well, how many calories are fat? So if we look at our label right here, it says that 45 calories are fat, and remember this represents the whole. So this whole, and these are for crackers, it says the crackers have a total of, so the whole thing has 130 calories, but only part of it is fat calories. So then I would go ahead and simplify this by 5. Then point to the x, go across. 26 times what is 100? I know it's about 4, so 9 times 4, this is going to be about 36, so I'm using some estimation here. So I don't know, 26 times what is 100? I know it's about 4, so I'm going to solve this proportion. I'm going to divide by 26. And when you do 900 divided by 26, so 26 goes into 93 times. Twenty-six goes into 120 5 times. So I guess we didn't really need a round because it was 35%. Okay, and then we're going to do one last one, number 7. I'm not going to solve the whole thing, we're just going to set it up. So it says you left a $39 for a tip. That's a lot of money for a tip. This was 30% of the entire bill. How much was the entire bill? So the first thing you're going to ask is, was the percent given? So it was given that the percent is 30%, and percents go over 100. Then we need to make sure we understand what that represents. The 30 represents, this was 30% of the bill. What was? The tip. So this represents the tip as a percent. So what we need to put here is, well, how much was the tip? The tip was $39. We want to figure out the whole bill. How much was the whole bill?